It's the weekly 30-30 trading list on the ASX. We're reviewing the 30 top momentum companies over the last quarter and the companies that have had the most significant improvement in the last week, what we call the Launchpad. These two lists of 30 companies have been scoured by Gary Glover, and he's now looked at them to pull out the ones we can learn from, the trading opportunities, and the ones that are of most interest. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Chris.
You've got a bit of research that you've done over the week and the weekend, and we'll get spoiled with that a little bit later on. But this week's top momentum companies, are you noticing anything in these top 30 momentum companies?
The one thing which is jumped out at me pretty hard actually this week was sort of medical, or I guess you'd sort of say biotech, healthcare, and probably medical devices. Probably the big one in there actually. So definitely a lot of small names with sort of medical devices there, which sort of popped in there. So had me sort of, really looking them up, trying to work out what their products were. Because there's quite a lot of names there that I hadn't seen before, but all seem to be popping pretty hard in that sort of medical device space as well. So there's a few healthcare names in there, But yeah, so I thought that, I think there's a few, I think I saw in your report there, Chris, I think medical devices. What was the other sector there?
Diagnostic equipment.
Diagnostic standard, yeah. So definitely had a few moves in there. So, yeah, I must admit, I do really like that healthcare space, and biotech's been a bit hit and miss there, hasn't had a run for a while. So, yeah, it's, got to be, yeah, some inroads in there as well. And that's probably a little bit more risk in that area as well. So the market sort of opens up a little bit, gets going here, then, with some of the stocks, obviously things like banks and some other stocks have run pretty hard there. So you might see some money come out of there, and maybe some money will go to a little bit more risk here. The market sort of stays pretty buoyant.
Right, yeah, we did see on the report, rating very high was oncology and cancer treatment as well. Yeah. So a good space. And when you're looking at the charts, if you're starting chronologically at the top momentum companies, which ones start standing out to you for something to look at and explore?
Yeah, number 5 was AGC, Australian Gold and Copper there. So I just got this as a bit of a wide correction there, Chris. So it's a little, tight for winners and loose for losers there. So it's just a little loose here, this sort of size there. It's obviously going up pretty nice there. Some good volume there, which we do like. But it's had a pretty decent sized pullback there in pretty quick time. So you prefer to sort of see it be a little tighter than that. But look, the volume's interesting. But I'd probably like to see this tighten up a lot more first here. So it's a little loose at this stage. FAL, Falcon Metals. Thought this was sort of interesting there. Just had some pretty big volume there. Has pulled back here. Had that one day of selling there, Chris, I think, off the high there, and the volumes have sort of lightened off here. So probably want to see this tighten up a little bit here, and maybe the volume drive there. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. Could reset again. CU6, this is an amazing stock here, Chris. So it did tighten up again here. Probably a bit more volume than you'd like to see in a tight congestion there. But we sort of still, obviously that was pretty buoyant through there. And the volume was a bit lighter, even though probably heavier than you'd want to see. But yeah, it's still had a little pop out of the range the other day there. So yeah, this is an awesome case of of a leadership stock that just keeps running, and then probably really goes on to be a lot more there. And it had a fair pause as well. So we'll probably I'll cover this actually in the. I'm going to do the Magnificent Seven. For Oz stocks, and have a really good look in depth there. This is obviously one of those ones that has had a corrective around the last 12 months, but that's a nice big pause again. Should start to see a bit more volatility in there, but it's just reset again, and look at the volume it just came out of there. That's broken a little B wave there, and on heavy volume as well. So just goes to show there's sort of leaders there. You got to keep an eye on there. The one thing I've sort of learned there is that they can come back on, so they'll lead and then they'll go through a congestion there. But they often will, the strong names will sort of set up again. So these leadership stocks, you've really got to keep on your radar because they can set up there. And I've been learning sort of from Minervini which ones to trade to. Because it's sort of like, you see the leaders there, sometimes they cool off and then come back. I'm trying to understand which ones are the strongest ones to look for. And there's definitely a few little tricks of the trade there. So we might even, I'll cover that actually in our Launchpad deck. There's a really good example there in Launchpad today. RAC, so here's one that actually, again, I was a bit worried about this one because it was a little loose here, quite wide here. But what we did see is we saw this VCP tighten up in here. So what you want to see is that, they can start loose, which is a bit of a negative, but then you want to see them tighten up here. So we saw this, this correction was smaller, then it had a little tight in here. So a little volume there, pretty tight there, and then we sort of popped out of the range there. So we just want to see some of these loose ones there. But can't rule them out completely, but you want to see them tighten up here. That's the key there. CYM, just a small name there. Just had a nice run there. Some okay volume, probably a little small there, Chris, but has sort of has had a nice run again. So the key now is for this thing to just tighten up here, the volume to be really light there. So we want to sort of see like a little handle on here. We want to sort of see maybe, if we look at this range here, so from 3.2 up to 4.9 or something there, we only really want to see price come back half of that range, sort of try and stay in the upper half there, and then see no volume there, no sort of selling there, because this potentially could break through a little cap and handle there. So very early days there, probably requires a bit more homework there, but definitely want to keep an eye on there because it is a setup there. We did mention another setup like this on the last couple of weeks, and it's just starting to permeate through the top end there, which is on the list again today. So it's yeah. So there's another setup here. Actually, this is one I covered last week, Bruce. You remember we sort of had a bit of a run, changed the character, did pull back there, pretty light pullback. Had those 4 days there. Look at that 1, 2, 3, 4, pretty juicy sort of volume there. And then the whole thing just dried up here. So we've got, 4 big days up there and almost a 5th day here of no volume. But hardly moved there. This is probably the one that I said last week looked probably the most interesting of all the stocks here. Just because that heavy volume is pretty supportive. And then the tightening up here. So it's had a bit of a pop here. So this is pretty good here. So be nice. I know sometimes we look too far ahead. But I see things like these are sort of constructive. Then I sort of hope, well, maybe we'll get a little handle in here and set up better on. So wishful thinking sometimes they just go straight through, but definitely wants to sort of keep an eye. It's probably a little small for me, but that was a pretty interesting setup there, I thought, last week. So for one of the small ones there. Catapult's kind of constructive for me. I thought this was really good at VCP in here. Definitely broke out there. Had that good move there. Dried up on no volume here. Bit of a telltale sign. Then it's had a pretty good update there. I like what the CEO said. I thought it was pretty positive there. It's had a pretty good couple of days there. Whole thing's tightening up again. Nice little congestion in there. So a little bit of selling the other day at the high there. So it might need a bit more work here. But I still think there's leaders there that continue to sort of often push through here. So probably watch this one tighten up again. But definitely one that could keep going here. So, put that on the radar for sure. Macro metals there, so M4M. I thought this was pretty interesting, Chris, because that's been really robust volume all the way through here. So it's had a bit of a pullback here, probably a bit of a overbalance, so pretty large correction, largest correction of the move so far. So that does sort of overbalance, sort of tip the trend over. But now we're sort of, tightened up. We saw some good volume on the bounce there, which is interesting. And then we've pulled back there and the volumes are sort of dried up here. So, again, it's still sitting above the 50 here. So it's held relatively tight there. So probably just needs a bit more time, this one here. But considering that volume and that move, if we go back and look at some of those, those Mag 7 stocks, Chris, a lot of them look like this in the first leg up. Big, impulsive move, big volume, and then they go through a congestion there. So definitely this is telling us there that's pretty active, pretty big move. This is telling us this should be on our radar there. We should begin investigating macro metals and just see, seeing what it's about, what sector it is, is running it. Just doing a little bit of just a little bit of homework on the stock there. VUL was a nice little VCP in here earlier in the year, and has broken out. Kind of fulfilled a bit of a target for me. Probably overshot, but yeah, now getting a little bit volatile here. Still a bit of selling in here, but yeah, it just needs to sort of go through a bit more congestion there. So you put that on the watch list there, but it's probably gonna be out of action for a while, I think. PME, geez, I mean, this is
Wow.
It's looking at this. This is sort of obviously a stock which everyone just thinks, oh, it's run too fast, it just keeps going up here. I mean, I won't even look at the 5-year. I'll just go straight to the 10-year chart. That is just a phenomenal looking chart there. So good little setup there, but great lesson in here, and that you sort of see that this is sort of where these leaders there. Obviously, at some point they'll have a bit of a correction. So it's had a bit of a pullback. Then it sort of has a nice bounce here, and then it tightens up in there. This is probably the first time here. Maybe get a bit of a bounce. You are back above the 50, so breaking above here. That's probably the first time you look at it. It gives you a little throwback after going above, which is often the case. These leading stocks does go back up to the high there, and then pulls back in there. I think the first few days in here off the high, pretty light volume. Volume only comes in at the low there, which could be a sign of obviously accumulation taking place. So then it goes back up to the high again, Chris, as well. So up here, you've got this sort of nice little cup here and a handle nice and tight as well. And then you're looking for the breakout there. So you can see here, once it does break out above there, there is a little one-day throwback, but again, no volume. So just people are a bit afraid to buy these breakouts there. Sometimes they break and go in a really strong market, in something a little bit more timid, like we do at the moment. You will get a bit of a throwback there for a day or two, and then goes on there. But that's 112 here. We're already at 132, 133 here. It's up $20 there. That's 20% move here. So it just goes to show that these leaders have been running for a long time look a little bit overpriced there. They stayed there. I mean, the whole thing's held to 50 there as well, Chris, as well. That's one thing I sort of when I'm looking at Minervini and Dan Zanger, the grades there, they're looking at the stocks that have held up here under the highs, congesting on the highs, sitting above the 50s, come back there. So yeah, you can do this little pullback, break the 50, but then you sort of want to get back up, back and sort of sit on top of it, and then you start sort of congesting sort of above it. So I mean, this will be maybe the first little entry here with a bit of a stop down here, bit wide, but maybe you start with a small, and then I think once you're coming out of this handle, then you're probably adding to it as well. You move the whole stop up there as well. But that really good lesson there. Just a classic case of that sort of leader remaining pretty buoyant. Here's another one too, Spartan. I mean, this is another one that's in the Mag 7 that I'll cover separately here. But this stock's had a phenomenal run there. It's had a few pauses there. But again, we had this sort of pause sort of sideways in there, and then we've come out again, Chris, after this sort of congestion there. It's a little bit of a rise there and a pop up here. But the day it does pop out of this little B wave, the volume's pretty strong. So you've already got a leader here above the 50, remaining strong here, just having a little pause, and the volume's good here. So, and even this tightness in here again, it's just stayed pretty tight as well. So it's amazing how these strongest names keep giving on the upside, and they just keep flowing in the same direction all the time. So, it's a big lesson for me, having sort of studied some of these sort of stronger names, as they they often will sort of set up a second, third, and sometimes maybe like a fourth time after having it before. So, they had up pretty firm here. NGI, I thought this was pretty firm here. One thing about sort of corrections there, just look, this has had a pretty run here for all year. Hasn't really sort of gone near the 50, hasn't broken the 50. All these corrections are just sideways orientated. This is just a sideways orientation here as well. Another sideways orientation here. So you're just not sort of seeing any selling. So you're not seeing Didn't see any volume through here. Very, so little volume through any of these sort of pullbacks there. And then you see a big chunky line come through to buy it back again. So just got to, just a matter of basically watching how they sort of counter trend these strongest names there. But some good lessons in there. ARX is just sort of one that sort of started to pop out there. Probably less attractive there so far, Chris, just because the volume's a bit lighter here. There's nothing there's nothing too strong there. Look, broken a swing high there, which is a plus. Is above the 50 now, which obviously is a plus as well. Had a little pop out here, had a little congestion there, and then it's come out the top there. So that's probably the first, if you're sort of looking at this, but still pretty light volume there. So looks okay without being awesome there. And that's our momentum sort of quarterly list there.
Okay, so the quarterly momentum list, you've got a lot of long-term leaders in there that are proving that they've just still got momentum and are still ranking very highly, even though they've had phenomenal runs. In the Launchpad, I'm just looking at sort of the thematics. You still have not the same kind of movement that you just showed in the top momentum companies. Did anything stand out to you in the Launchpad?
Just a lot of VCPs in there, Chris, in the list there. So and I was just looking at some of the names that have, in the Launchpad there's definitely some distinguishing features. Where it's like some of them had some sort of deeper pullbacks. Now others have sort of had some milder pullbacks there as well. So that is a good, when I was sort of trying to look through, I had to look through some of Minervini's recent trades and just try and identify what, because obviously it's a bit messy. The market there, we're getting a few pullbacks, a few congestions there. What sort of names are they looking at and kind of why trading those names as opposed to others? So there were a few features there. I mean, probably the biggest thing there was like AD8, number 29 on the Launchpad, so down the end there. See how that's had a pretty deep pullback there. But so the whole thing now is under the 50. So it's had a pretty deep pullback. So you might think, this pulls back in there and then it eventually breaks that sort of, that little B wave there. You might think, I might trade that. But then the whole thing's under the 50. Now, I found that Minervini doesn't trade those.
Right.
So you generally won't go, even though this has been a leading name in the past, because it's had such a deep correction now, it's gone pretty deep. Not showing, like its RS will be pretty low, so it wouldn't be a 90 above. It'd be on the lower end. It's had a pretty deep correction, and it's sitting below the 50, so it wouldn't go near it. Whereas, I think the name before it, shown on number 30 on the list, was REA. See how this has just stayed a lot tighter. So it stayed under that state. It's had a bit of a pullback there, like a little three-way pullback, gone back up into here. But he'd be looking for this. See, it's sort of held the 50 there, breaks a little bit of a B wave there. This would be a name that he would come back into because it's probably showing relative strength. So it's probably sort of sitting at 90, 95 on the list, and it's sitting above the 50, and it's just showing relative strength there. And we've obviously had a pop in the last few days. So the one that he traded recently, and this is a good example, was I think about this MU in the States there. So this basically had a pullback here, and then it 50 down. Yeah, so I think it's might be one of the chip names. I can't remember how they came, but see how it sort of pulled back here. This just looks like a bit of a, almost like a bear flag in a way, but then it sort of comes off, but then it sort of rolls back above here. So I saw that I don't know if he bought the cheat here, but I think he bought the break of this little B wave here. But again, the reason he bought this name because has showed relative strength versus the overall market, stayed above the 50, and obviously probably a leading theme as well. So, a good lesson there. We're also analysing sort of his trades there, sort of what to look for. So, because we're going to look at these old leaders, we know which ones we're going to be looking for. We're going to be looking at the ones that hold up the best. Don't sort of probably, if they do break the 50, they've got to get back above it again and then maybe congest above the 50. Sometimes the 50 will take a little while. If you do break below the 50, like something like here, you might get back above it quickly and break, but then you're sort of looking for looking for price not to be too long under the 50 and then basically breaking above the B wave pretty quickly as well. So that would be the only time that he'd be looking at those. So it's just an interesting distinction there between those names. I might continue to work my way back here. SEK number 24. Not that it's a great little pattern there, but there is a little bit of an inverse head and shoulder there, Chris, as well. So obviously we come back into a bit below there. It's not a popular pattern for me, but I think this stock does have some history of these little head and shoulders, sort of tops and bottoms there. So the stock does have a bit of a history there, sort of wanted to keep an eye on there. So it's had some okay volume down the low here. I think it did pull back on some sort of lighter volume there, the pop here, but yeah, not okay with that. Big brilliant there. REH thought was interesting as well. Again, this is sort of has been a leader there. Held up pretty well here, Chris. So the only negative is it's below the 50 currently. So it did have a little bit of a B wave break in here, but below the 50. So that's why we probably can't get too excited about it yet, even though this is probably largely a sideways correction in the market there. So that's the positive there. Just like to see it above the 50 there first there. But maybe there's a build here. Do a bit more congestion there, and maybe the 50 will flatten out. But you really want to sort of see these things. You can sort of see how it sort of came out of here and then broke the 50 here, and a little B wave. I guess you might sort of see at the same time here, and looking for some strength there, and then adding to it along those names as well. So I think I'm starting to lean towards just making that 50 almost. I think it sort of covers about 3/4 of my trades at the moment, trading above the 50, the way that I support my setups. But I'm wondering if I shouldn't go to like 90 or 100%. So just based on what I've sort of seen, Minervini, he doesn't seem to trade anything under the 50 there. So yeah. DTL was interesting there. I think we sort of covered this one on a weekly there a couple of weeks ago. It's had some good volume. Yeah, so this has now had a bit of a jump out of the range there. He's back above the 50 again. So yeah, so this has had a pretty good beat there. Probably looking for, probably want to see maybe a little bit of a counter move in there. But I think the weekly there, we did sort of see like a bit of an ABC come back. It did go just below the old high there. Prefer to sort of see them sit on top there, but it's only just marginal. But pretty good volumes come back in here. So that's pretty good shape overall. So definitely one to be keeping an eye on there. Probably be nice to sort of see that flatten out, have a bit of a corrective pattern there. And, maybe set up a little BCP or some sort there. That's definitely one to keep an eye on there. IDX was the one that I sort of mentioned previously, just because sort of like this is a nice little cup here and a handle there. Probably think this is it just broke below the 50, but it never closed below the 50% of that range there. Sort of, so if I overlay the Fibonacci from that sort of high to low there, you'd sort of see the 50% is probably around about there. So it's gone just below, but it's held it every time and never finished below there. So this is looking pretty constructive here now, because it's now had this is pretty light volume in here. The only time we've sort of seen volume, it's sort of a bit of volume at the low here. Sort of a bit of volume, starting to punch through the top side here. So yeah, nice little cup and handle in there. Diagnostics, so right in kind of the right area at the moment. Seeing some positivity in those names as well. So yeah, I think I do actually have a little parcel of this one, Chris, and I'd probably add to it if I saw a break above the top end there. I actually like the fact that it did break, above this last little congestion zone in here. So that's supportive there. But I'll probably decide it's a little bit thin to trade, so it's not it's just a little thin there, so you can't go too hard, I think, in those sort of less liquid sort of names there. DUL, thought there was a little VCP in here, but again, it's sort of sitting under the 50, not sitting above the 50, so probably less strong there. So it's probably popped out and then come back again. Still probably holding that zone there, but like to see a bit more here first there. So a little bit young. Rusty, LG. What's the other one there? Just, again, look, it's okay here. You sort of got a little bit of a BCP. You're sort of starting to break above some highs there, but it's pretty messy, not very impulsive sort of chart there. So not the best there. I mean, not that it's a good example there, but I noticed that Telstra's got a little BCP. Yeah. So again, even some of the sleepy names can set up here, but so actually some okay volume there, but it's below the 50. So it's not, again,
Not ideal.
no, it's a weaker name. Even though it's a VCP, it's not sitting in a strong position there. So yeah, we want to try and avoid. We want to try and stay with the sort of stronger names. Yeah, SPZ. This one's pretty interesting there because it's sort of like obviously sort of smaller stock there, but it's had really had a nice run here. Nice little congestion period, nice little tightening up here, like a bit of a cup and handle, a bit of a long handle, maybe VCP in there, but then did break through and push on there. It's just been sort of nice and nice and steady. Has gone up here, and now we've sort of got this, again, we've got this nice little cup here and a little tighter handle, and the whole thing's sort of congesting here under the high there. So I thought, oh, that's actually, that might look at that. It's a little small, SPZ, but I thought looks quite good. Bio, was another one there, another little sort of, look, had a pretty strong run here, some pretty good volume all the way through here, and now we've had this little ABC correction, and now we're sort of, we're sort of popped above the 50, bit of a little cup and handle in here as well, probably a bit early, a bit messy, but doesn't look too bad actually for sort of one of the small names too. Obviously that sector's interesting at the moment as well. So, but yeah, probably a bit messy, but not too bad. ACL, the Australian Clinical Lab, there's actually some of these healthcare names that have had a pretty good run here. So this is a nice sort of run here. Some okay volume there. Still hasn't broken swing high there, but it is a good setup there. I thought the other one in that sector there, ACL, was actually Helios as well. So a bit flatter here so far. But you can see here, like if you look at the weekly setup there, you'll see this pretty big volume here for quite a while. So it's almost sort of accumulation sort of style. So definitely worth keeping an eye on some of these healthcare names as well. So they're sort of coming off some pretty low bases there. RFG. Retail food group had a bit of a pop there, not one that I'd be personally chasing. Again, just letting my fundamentals get in the way of my technicals. But yeah, a little messy. What do we got there? I think EVS was number 3. Bit of a volume off the low here, pretty early, pretty thin. It's sold. Thought Zip was really interesting, Chris. I did see this actually at the start of the week and thought, well, that's some pretty decent volume through here in this run. Pull back here, nice little ABC. You could even make like a little false break in there. So a little false break, and then this volume here is going really. So I'm hoping here maybe we'll get a VCP set up in here. We might get a little congestion because this volume is pretty healthy. That volume was pretty light through there compared to the volume on the rally and on this rally here. So it was weird because I thought I saw this the same time as I saw PayPal get mentioned in I think stage analysis there. Basically, it must be breaking above the 30-week moving average or coming out of a stage 2 base. So just talking about it, it was on watch. Hasn't come out yet. But I saw sort of PayPal and Zip kind of get mentioned in the same day from sort of traders there. So I thought, well, okay, it's interesting. But that's a good setup here. So love to see this pull back in here. Do something like this sort of, some sort of tight congestion like this, and see no volume here. So that's exactly what we want to see. Pull back, no volume, but we'd love to see like 4 or 5 of those come back like this, and then start to come through. So this is definitely one we should be keeping an eye on as well. One thing I think I missed on here,
Top 10, there was good VCP.
And I think I reckon, what's that? What was was it WMG? I thought was on the list as well. I just, I saw this one as well. I thought it was pretty interesting. It sort of had a nice little burst there, pretty strong volume. Pull back on sort of lighter volume, some okay volume, come back in again, and then another surge bit of volume there. But look at this here. So now we've had 5 or 6 days here. Hasn't struggled to go down so far. So that's not a bad sign there. So things like copper, gold, sort of doing some sort of heavy drilling had a bit of a hit in there. So I think there's more drilling to come. So look, they're always a little risky, but if you get some good strikes there and get a good jump there, they can, the market can get excited about more hits coming. So, but like the fact that not much selling in there so far, so it's sort of constructed there. So I thought that was okay as well. So a few names there to add to the list, and a few sectors there to be sort of keeping an eye on there, and probably some homework there for us, Chris, to go and look at some of those names and just sort of see what they do as well. I looked at a few of them up there. Some of them were some of them were cancer tests, obviously, I think one was ovarian cancer tests, the rapid antigen sort of style tests and stuff there. So so they can get a bit buoyant there. Those things tend to sort of pop and drop. So just keep that in mind there. Always, it's why I personally use stops there. But
it's definitely a good week of medical equipment, medical diagnostic, and sort of supplementary medical suppliers, and sort of that change of pace. And a couple of weeks ago, you did say, look, we've been looking for it out of this sort of movement, those next leaders. Could be it. You mentioned WMG, that was definitely on the list last week. So look, we've got some extra names to add to the watch list. You've explained how leaders can come back and reset, and what you're looking for at this stage. I won't give away too much about what we talk about next. So to that point, I might say thank you.
I have one comment there, actually. I read something for Minervini that was out maybe in the last 2 days there, and it doesn't hit a chord with me there. I don't know if it's actually... this is Minervini says, over the years, the most important discipline I developed personally is the ability and willingness to never let my opinion get in the way of good setups breaking out. I always let the stocks dictate where my capital goes, regardless of what my gut says. Sometimes my gut is right, sometimes it's wrong, but the stocks can never be wrong because I am the caboose and the market is the engine. My strategy is what I follow, not my personal opinion. That takes discipline and willingness. Work on that. So that's when I read that, I thought, well, that's me. My weakness is that I let my opinion get in the way of some really good trades this year. I see some good setups and thought, no, that's a dreadful company, or the sector's going the wrong way, or it's already had a run, it's not a cap raising, surely wouldn't keep going. So sometimes we just gotta and I know some of actually probably 2 or 3 of my best trades this year, or actually one in particular, I almost didn't do it because my gut was telling me not to do it. But then I thought, oh wait, it's done the setup, it's done exactly what you looked for. You're just gonna take a trade because the setup's there. So it just goes to show it's sort of try and get out of each other's way, and just have your setups there, have your rules, and then just be disciplined enough to sort of take those trades there. That's funny how you sort of sometimes when you least want to take the trades, that those are often the signs actually that's the best trade. And in the past, sometimes I've had, when the market's been in turmoil, and I put a trade on there, and I've had an assistant say to me, "Well, Garrett, I don't think you should do that. I think it's too risky here." When they've said that to me, I've often doubled the size of my trade, because that tells me he's scared for me, and that's usually been a good sign to actually take the trade. So,
that's sort of indicating that the market's level of fear is quite high, and that sort of can often mark the market lows or turning points. So, when it feels wrong, it might actually be the right time. Getting into contrarian movements here.
Yep.
But we'll end this week with the top 30 there. Thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.
Gary's mentioned we've indicated that we're going to be doing another video. We'll be recording it straight after this and publishing a little bit later, so check back in the next couple of days about Gary looking at the Magnificent Seven of the Australian companies, the ones that have had the best trades, and breaking down where the entry setups were, where the indicators were, and what he's looking for the similar sort of trades. Also on the right-hand side is his Tuesday report, where he shares that with weekly clients for clients weekly updates of the trades that he's taking. And then on the left is his X or his Twitter handle if you want to follow Gary there.